All right, here's the last one in this intro series about creating drafting from a 3D viewport. So we've gone ahead and modeled a few videos back our 3D view of our door frame back on our design layer. And then in the previous video, we created the viewports on this sheet layer. And now we're almost done. Pretty much everything that you need to do now, you already know how to do, with the exception of a few little things that are specific to viewports. I want to show you those now. First of all, remember that when you see this little candy stripe on here, that means that it needs to be updated. So there's a lot of different ways to do that. I can just select this viewport, and the easiest one is just to come over here and click on this update, the red letters on here that says update in the object info. You can also just right click and get the context pop-up menu, and there's update right down there at the bottom as well. And you can also come up to the view menu, and if you come down over here, you can update selected viewports. I wouldn't recommend you coming all the way up to that menu and all the way down again unless you have multiple viewports selected across your document that you want to update with one click. You can also update all the viewports in your document, but remember, that's going to be every viewport on every sheet layer. Right now, we only have the one with these 3 viewports on it. So if I say update all viewports right there, it just updated the viewport. That was super fast. But if you have 10 sheet layers and 5 or 6 viewports on each layer and some that have render settings and that kind of stuff, you could do update all viewports, and then you think it's updating the viewports on this sheet layer you're looking at. No, it's updating everything in the document. And it's suddenly like, why is it taking so long? So I'm going to hit the N key for now we need to add dimensions. So I'm going to add the constrained linear dimension tool over here, and I'm going to click up at the top of this guy, and I'm going to come down here and click at the bottom of this 8-foot flat, and I'm going to come over here, I'm going to look at that dimension, and it says 8 inches. Now, why is that? Well, it's because we drew it on the sheet layer, and as you learned in the previous video, a sheet layer is always in full scale. Unlike the design layer, back when we drew our ortho view, we set the design layer to 1 inch. In this case, the sheet layer is always in full scale. So if I hit print, I grabbed a regular ruler and I measured the ink on the piece of paper right over here, it would be 8 inches long. And of course that makes sense because we set the scale of our 8-foot door flat to 1 inch equals 1 foot. So yeah, 8 inches, it's going to be 8 inches. That's what this is going to be in scale. So I'm going to hit delete on that. Actually, before I hit delete, I'm going to hit the X key and show you that if I move this viewport over, you can see that this is not attached to it in any way. When you add dimensions inside the annotations inside the viewport, well, they're part of that viewport. And then if you decide to move the viewport around, maybe you want to rearrange your drawing to make it a little more easier to read, or you can fit a few more things in there. It's all going to stay inside the viewport. Right now, on the outside of the viewport, this is just sitting on the page. So I'm going to go ahead and delete that and show you that the next thing we need to do is jump into this viewport. Well, I keep on talking about these annotations. Well, how do you edit the annotations? Well, the easiest way to do that is to double click on it. But by default, when you double click on it, you're going to get this little pop-up dialog menu over here. And you can see we have the choice between editing the annotations or the crop. I'll talk about crop in a second, what that is. What I highly recommend you do, it's up to you, but if you come down over here to where it says double click, I really recommend that you select edits the annotation from this list. And the reason for that is you need to edit the crop once in a while. If you've done a good job with your layers and your classes, you can get through a whole project without needing to actually create a crop. But we're going to be editing the annotations all the time. So having to double click and tell it which one we want in this dialog box over and over again is just going to add unnecessary time. So I'm going to go ahead and say OK to that. But now I'll exit the viewport annotation. We'll come right back to that. But what happens if I do want to do a crop? And what is a crop? Well, you can always right click on it. You still get this context menu, edit crop right there. It's probably up in the view menu as well. If I select edit crop from this list, I get an orange bordered workspace here. It says edit viewport crop up over there. Any 2D shape. I'm just going to grab the rectangle tool, but it could be a hexagon. It could be a squiggly line with the polyline tool, whatever, as long as it's a closed 2D shape. So if I take this closed 2D rectangle on here, even in the preview mode here, you can kind of see what it's going to do. It's going to crop out everything except what's in this little window over here. So I'm going to click the exit viewport crop. I'll update it as well. And you can see, yep, it's cropped out everything but that. Sometimes the crop is really useful. Many times you just don't need a crop at all. So I'm going to go ahead and right click on here and select edit crop. I'll just delete that one that we don't need anymore, exit the viewport crop, and then I'll update it just to be tidy over here. So let's actually get around to finally making these annotations I keep talking about. So I'm going to double click on this now. When I double click on it, it takes me straight to the viewport annotations, which is where we want. I'm going to hit that N key, and I'm going to do that exact same thing now inside the viewport. And look, sure enough, there it is. It says 8 foot 0 inches. I'm not going to go over how to do all of the dimensions. You learned that in a previous video, but you can do that now. Just add in all the dimensions that you want in this view, and they're going to behave exactly like they did back on the design layer when we drew that ortho view a few videos back. So since you know how to do that, I'm going to skip over the rest of that now. Let's take a look though, however. I'm going to hit the X key, and let's grab this section line. Remember when we created the section viewport over here, it just went ahead and put these default really heavy duty hardcore section lines. This is the kind of section indicator you would use if you were cutting through a whole house drawing to say this is the, this half of the house, that half of the house, whatever. It's a little bit of an overkill for this. So we can change that by just coming over here into the object info, and you notice that style is an option. Sometimes this is blank in here, so it's easy to skip over because this field is empty, but style right there, just go ahead and come down here to replace. And if you click replace, and then if you pop this little window open, you have other options over here. Here's the one that we have by default. For this, something as simple as this, I'm just going to use this really, really simple one. I'm just going to click on this and then hit the select button, and then I'll hit OK. And then now it's just converted it to this. It's just the number, that 3, that's referencing drawing number 3 here. It's just saying, hey, this section view is drawing number 3. Much more subtle for how small this little reference needs to be for just our door flat. That's much better. I'm going to go ahead and grab the title over here. These can be generated automatically, and you can name them and choose all kinds of stuff when you create the viewport. But even if you just leave the default one in over here, you can still edit it in the drawing label up in the object info. I went ahead and already changed the title to front elevation, but I'm also going to change the style of this too. So same spot, I'm going to come over here to style. I'm going to say replace, and then I'm going to come over here and select. I like this one. I think it's this one. I think that's the right one. I'm going to go and select there. I'm going to say OK. And there we go. It did what I wanted it to do. So this is drawing number 1 on sheet layer 1. We only have the one plate. So if we had a second plate and we named it sheet layer 2, then the first drawing on that plate would be 1/2 and so on. I like that style because it makes it very easy to reference between documents. So you can say like, oh, doorknob detail, 3/7. That means it's the third drawing over on plate number 7. It's really easy to reference other things like that. So again, you use whatever style you want, but this is pretty common, this little style, and I think it's useful. Let's take a look over here, though. I'm going to exit the viewport animation and see that it's kind of funky that it goes 1, 3, 2. We can fix that really easily. I'm going to double click into this guy here, grab it. While I'm here, I'll go ahead and change it. I'll replace it style. I can just say OK this time because it already has the style I like loaded in there. Remember, you can always come over here and I'm just going to touch that other viewport there. I can still snap to another viewport, if I got it there right. And that's going to keep it nice and straight in a line there. And I'm going to go ahead and come over here to where it says drawing number 3, and I'm going to change this to number 2. So it reads 1, 2, 3. Now, because there is a number 2 over here, our ISO view, it's going to yell at us, but that's okay. If we type in 2 and then I hit enter, it's going to say, wait a second. And I'm just going to say, yep, that's okay. And look, it did exactly what we want. 1, 2, and then it changed this one over here to 3, even though it does not yet have a title or we haven't updated the style of the marker. That's okay as well. I'm going to go ahead and say exit that viewport annotation, and I'm going to click on the update button. And that's basically it. So we're sort of done. That's all you need to do. Add a border in here. You can play around with the title block border tool if you want, or manually fill out your title block. Add your dimensions, add any kind of notes you want. Hit print or hit export. Remember, you go up to here to File, Export, and export as PDF. Email that to whoever you needed to do, and you're done. So hopefully you've learned a lot from this series. Good luck.